Hello, Alamal. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mona Cottage Books. I'm Selby, and today I want to talk about how to use a bilingual book. Okay, so what is a bilingual book? Let's start there. So a bilingual book is any book that has two languages in it. Very simple. You can have bilingual books for both kids and adults. They are more rare for adults, but they are out there. So if you can source those, then that's great for adults learning a second language. But most of the bilingual books are going to be for kids. Board books, picture books, and then a few I've seen like early readers. But most books after that are not, unfortunately. So here's an example of a nonfiction bilingual book. This is actually published by Mona Cottage Publishing, and it's Let's Eat. So it's all about food. This one happens to be in French, but they also come in English and then German, Dutch, French, Spanish, and I believe Ukrainian as well. So what you're looking for is you've got the texts side by side so that they can be read at the same time easily. And when we open this up, you can see that you've got one language and then the second language. This has been made so that they're different colors, so it's easily distinguishable which language is which. Some bilingual books don't distinguish as well, I think, but hopefully this is a little bit easier. Now, once you've got a hold of a bilingual book, what do you do with it? So, of course, you can just read it. That's one way to do it. You read one language, then you read the next language, and you go from there. But there's other things you can do too. So first, if you want to gauge where your kid is at in the language learning process, what you can do is you can start by going through the book and asking questions. Oh, do you know what this word is in French or Spanish or whatever your target language is? Do you know what this word is? Can you say it in both languages? Things like that to kind of gauge where the child is. This has been written specifically to teach children new vocabulary about food, because food is a very important part of life. So having a good foundation for food vocabulary, I think, is very important. So then after you've gone through and you've kind of discussed the pictures and you've talked and you've seen like, okay, whether the child can differentiate things in the new language or not, then you can go ahead and read it. Now, if you're doing Opal, one parent, one language, then one parent obviously can read their native language while the second parent reads the second language at a different day or time if needs be, or you can read them both at the same time if you speak both of these languages, then that works too. Something like this you can start by reading to a child, maybe even as young as like 3, you could read this to them and they can point and talk about the pictures. But once they get up to 6 or 7, they can start reading this themselves and you can just help out. Then you can do things like, okay, you've read the book, they understand it. Then you can be like, well, let's now make some food and talk about it in our target language, going off of like, okay, let's make oatmeal today. And we'll use the word for oatmeal in your target language. You can also, a book like this has a word list, a vocabulary list in the back. You can say, oh, let's take 5 words from this vocabulary list and put them into a sentence about our favorite food. And so then they can start thinking about how they want to make a sentence and with what words they want to make. Do they want to get new words that they don't know and put those into a sentence, things like that. So you can kind of start having interesting discussions and playing around with the book, getting the kids more interested in language learning rather than just like, oh, these are words that you have to learn on the page. Let's take it out of the book and make it into an experience. And that's why I like nonfiction books, is because then they can be used in kind of that Montessori way where it's like, let's take what we've learned here and put it into the real world. And Mona Cottage Publishing also has 3 other books. One is about play, one is about dogs, and one is about cats. And so having those nonfiction bilingual books gives you that in to start talking about things that are around you more often. If you've got a cat, you can read the cat book and then start like, oh, well, now you can only talk to the cat in French, and use the vocabulary that you've learned from this book to talk to the cat. Cat don't care anyway whether you're speaking French, English, Chinese. So get your kids, like trick them a little bit and get them to do something like that where they're using the language in a fun and interesting way. And bilingual books are a great starting point for that. So I hope this has helped you kind of understand what you can do with a bilingual book and how it can be helpful on you and your child's language learning journey.